Friends, Shabbat Shalom and greetings to you all. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I hope you all have begun to ensure that you observe and celebrate the joy that you deserve. And treat yourselves to the simple pleasures every day. I know that I am trying to. Now this week we happen to read one of the few parshas named for someone not Jewish, but named for one of the first monotheists that we actually know of. And of course that is Jethro, Moses' father-in-law. Exodus 18:1. And Jethro, priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard everything that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, that Yahweh had brought Israel out from Egypt. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and his sons and his wife came to Moses, to the wilderness in which he was camping, at the mountain of God. Now, friends, there are two things here to note. We're about to witness the reunion of Moses' family, his wife, his children, and we are back where the journey began, at the mountain of God, where the burning bush initiated this Mosaic journey that we are all still on. Now today, in this grab 'em or lose 'em world, where everyone seems to have the attention span of a gnat, this parsha would not be called Jethro. It would be called the Epiphany. That great Kenny Loggins tune, "This Is It," comes to mind. This is it. Make no mistake where you are. This is it. Your back's to the corner. This is it. Don't be a fool anymore. This is it. The waiting is over. This is it, my friends. Make no mistake. For many, the scene of God giving the Ten Commandments is the climax, the purpose, the mark of distinction, the raison d'etre. They will stay at the mountain for a year. They will be static when they leave from here for the promised land. It is a journey that will take 40 years, even though it is only 11 days away. This, my friends, is the beginning of the shift from the fear you knew, Mitzrayim, Egypt, confinement, the fear of the unknown, the wilderness, the land all spiritual beings have gone through and through which each of you go through, the length of which is up to you. Oh, and one of the dogs is here for a visit. Hi, Cassie. In all of the laws, incidents, crystallization of a nation from here on until Joshua and the walls of Jericho are about the birth of a nation. And speaking of Jericho, I have seen those 10,000-year-old walls, and their tumbling down was not about a sonic boom as some suggest. It was about the power of sound. It's about the power of your words. Now, after the Decalogue, which is what this section, can also be known as, comes the great construction phase with the tabernacle and all of its accoutrements. The most famous being the ark. Known as the Ark of the Covenant, because we are about to hear the covenant. The covenant was the agreement between God and man. Simply put, I will do, you will do. Now, the ark held the agreement, and it held the manna, which was the sign of the miracle. And it held the Urim and Thummim, the only real direct means of communicating with God, the way you asked a question and could get an answer. But as itself, it was a box with cherubim on top, not angels, cherubim, the same firing beings that was guarding Eden when man was thrown out. And we'll talk about all of these things when we read about the tabernacle section and all of the things that God instructed Moses to build for it. Now, friends, as an aside, I recently watched one of those great alien theory shows that talked about the Ark of the Covenant. And as I sat there, I found it fascinating that it described it as alien, a radio transmitter, a nuclear device, among other things. And I thought, it really is whatever current technology allows it to be. So I guess it is soon to be a ray gun of some kind. And it is believed to be in Ethiopia, Japan, India, France, England, Scotland, and of course, some people believe it is still buried at the Temple Mount. Now, all of these things, the covenant, the proof of miracles, the direct ability to talk to God, are all contained in your heart, my friends. Don't look out there. Look in here. The wilderness is the internal journey. Yes, there were only 11 physical days away, 40 internal years of work. How many years has your wilderness journey been? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? We had insight into the nature, emotions, and relationships of the patriarchs. We do not get any of these with Moses. We have reached the epiphany, the scene of awe. Yes, my friends, this is Yitro, Jethro. After all that, and it is called Yitro, talk about lunch bag letdown. Now, Jethro arrives with Moses' wife and sons. But only Moses' meeting with Jethro is described. There is nothing about his reunion with his family. The Bible's silences can be frustrating. Where did Cain find his wife? How did Sarah feel about her son being sacrificed? Often these are very loud silences. They are very powerful silences. Why does the Torah announce the arrival of Moses' wife and children, but not describe a personal reunion? Why was it important to let us know that his wife and children were present with the Israelites during the wilderness period, but it was not important to describe their family relations? The Torah, my friends, in so many ways is a book about family relations. Past, present, future. Family relations are described in the age of the patriarchs and in the age of the kings because there they play a role in the destiny of the people. Our families play a role in our destinies. Much is made of Aaron's. None is made of Moses's. In Moses's case, the family episodes are very few. His mother and sister protect him as a baby. His wife has a confrontation with him on the way to Egypt. Aaron and Miriam criticize his Cushite wife and are punished by God. The rest of Moses' family life is personal. His wife speaks 3 sentences in the Torah. His sons speak none. That tells us at the very least that this particular man, his particular life mission, is primarily about him and God on the one hand, and him and people on the other. And we see that. We see that he is the intermediary between God and the people. Now, after hearing about Moses' adventures, Jethro asks, what Moses is up to now. And Moses tells him he has to go off and judge. When they have some matter, it comes to me, and I judge between a man and his fellow, and I make known God's statutes and his teachings. Well, Jethro tells Moses to institute a system of judges. And this serves for a couple of purposes. It's so that Moses will not burn out, and it's so that people learn that there is accountability. And perhaps, my friends, you may notice that this appears to be a little out of sequence here. Moses judges to interpret laws of God, but the people haven't been given those laws yet, and there actually are no teachings yet. This part probably belongs later in the Torah, but there is an old rabbinic dictum that says there is nothing early nor late in the Torah. That is, chronology may be violated in order to bring out certain thematic emphases. That may be, but I really think this section takes away from what this parsha is really about. It's not about the judging. That comes later, and that is an important part, but it's about a deal. And the timing of when this deal takes place is also very specific and not normally referred to in the Torah. Exodus 19:1. On the 3rd new moon of the Israelites going out from Egypt, on this day did they come to the wilderness of Sinai. Now, normally, my friends, narrative units in the Torah are marked by the phrase, and it happened, vayahi. But here we are given very specifics as to timing. And perhaps because this is the pivotal event in the relationship between God and man. Exodus 19:5. And now, if you'll listen to my voice and observe my covenant, then you'll be a treasure to me out of all the peoples, because all the earth is mine. if the first occurrence of the word treasure, singular. It's not ambiguous. The people of Israel will be a treasured possession of God only if they listen and fulfill their covenant. Their status is not based on any intrinsic quality, but on their behavior. If they keep their part, they will be a treasure. It is pretty conditional. We are approaching the Epiphany. And the Epiphany is not for Moses, but for all the people. They are at God's mountain. On the third day, the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai before the eyes of all the people. Exodus 19:12. And you shall limit the people all around, saying, watch yourselves about going up the mountain and touching its edge. Anyone who touches the mountain shall be put to death. This is sacred space, my friends. And this is a holy zone. And not everyone can enter. And it takes spiritual work, right? As we see later on with the Holy of Holies, only the high priest can enter the Holy of Holies. So it's about sacred space and a holy zone. And we are given a description that involves thunder, lightning, and a heavy cloud on the mountain, and the sound of the ram's horn. And we are told Mount Sinai was all in smoke because the Lord had come down on it in fire. And its smoke went up like the smoke from a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. Remember I mentioned the other week when we talked about the plagues, the imagery of the furnace or kiln. You know, it was mentioned with Sodom. Here is its final biblical reference. You know, and then we have it again during the time of the Holocaust. And this blast of the horn is of celestial origin, probably blown by a member of God's angelic entourage, to announce the awe-inspiring descent of the King of all the earth to deliver the 10 words to his people. Thunder on the mountain, and there's fires on the moon, ruckus in the alley, and the sun will be here soon. Today's the day, gonna grab my trombone and blow. Well, there's hot stuff here, and it's everywhere I go. Exodus 21, and God spoke, Vayedaber, all these words, Devarim, saying. Now note, 10 is said nowhere. But we all think of Charlton Heston standing on the mountain as the little fireball of God carves the commandments. Remember that scene? It's a great scene. But it says, God spoke all these words. Friends, God speaks the words of the 10 Commandments aloud directly to the people. The 10 Commandments are the text of the covenant between God and Israel. In Exodus, the people pledge their obedience, and the covenant text is deposited in the Ark of the Tabernacle. Israel's relations with its God are conceived in the legal terms of that particular world. The words of the 10 Commandments in the Covenant Code are not only orders that must be obeyed, they are legal corpora, concluded contractually between the Creator and a human community. And you have to try and imagine how incredibly powerful a scene this is. He set before them all these words. Devarim are imagined in biblical Hebrew to be virtually palpable entities, tangible, physical, real, substantial, which can be put before people, which have powerful consequences from the moment they are spoken. Words have life. Thoughts are things which become spoken words and actions which have to manifest somewhere. Guard your words, my friends. We forget that there are causes and effects to everything, and we set in motion action when we utter our words. And keeping in mind, the finger of God writing these words on the stone tablets, they were carved on stone tablets. And so they would have been 10 lapidary injunctions, terse enough to be carved in stone. And there's a big difference between what was carved in stone and what was carved on clay tablets, which were soft and then hardened up. And friends, it begins with a statement. I am Yahweh, Yahweh, he who caused to be, your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, from a house of slaves. Not I am, the Lord who created the universe. I am your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, from a house of slaves. And all things from this point on are referenced with that reference. The issue of the opening words to this arises in part because in English we call this text by the name the Ten Commandments. Now, I don't know anyone who doesn't think of them that way. But it misleads us a little because in the Torah itself, in Exodus 34:28 or in Deuteronomy 10:4, this text is simply called the 10 things, or 10 words, or 10 utterances. And in Hebrew it is Aseret HaDevarim, or Aseret HaDibrot, as it is now called. Now, most people do not actually know the 10 Commandments. You know, they get some right, some they mix, some they forget altogether. And in a purely non-judgmental way, it is always fun to see who remembers what. Most people actually begin them incorrectly. And sometimes they confuse these ones with the Deuteronomy version, which reflects a change that took place after the golden calf incident. So all of you, who want, go take a look at the Deuteronomy version and send me an email and tell me what the difference is. And most do not think of them in the psychospiritual realm of how they actually apply in their lives. And so it's not hard to say you do not contravene them. How many of you see yourselves as murderers? Not too many, I bet. But if you have ever torn down the hopes, dreams, or wishes of someone, if you have ever insulted or demeaned someone purposely, you may very well have murdered a part of their soul. Now, many people believe they begin, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. You shall have no other God beside me. Sound familiar? It mixes the prologue statement with the first uttering, but the Hebrew actually says, Lo yiyeh lecha Elohim acharim el panai. You shall not have other gods before my face. Before my face. It's a very interesting choice of words. And it basically meant everywhere. You see, monotheism has become so successful in Western civilization and much of Eastern civilization that it's difficult now for us to recapture the original force of this commandment. The profound has become the norm. So people forget that it is profound. And the idea of God being everywhere was extremely profound. Before my face is, everywhere. Notice, friends, also, that it is actually almost impossible to have monotheistic commands without reference to other gods. Well, how do other gods fit in if there are no other gods? Think of how you could possibly state them, without a reference to other gods. And I'm going to tell you them the way they are written in the biblical Hebrew. So some of them are going to sound a little bit different than how you normally have heard them. And I hear the printer going. Number 2, you shall not make a statue or any form that is in the skies above, or that is in the earth below, or that is in the water below the earth. These are the 3 realms of the biblical world. And you can picture each duly registered in the first creation story. And then we get a little explanation. You shall not bow to them. You shall not worship them, for I am the Lord your God, a jealous God, reckoning the crime of fathers with sons, with the 3rd generation, with the 4th from my foes, and doing kindness to the 1,000th generation. Quite a statement. Jealous. A God who will punish you for 3 or 4 generations, but reward you for 1,000. I was having a discussion about conditional love with a rabbi I know in Michigan the other day, and this came up. Talk about conditioned. Oops. And again, we continue with this anthropomorphic view of God throughout the entire journey of Exodus. And you have to understand that ancient paganism was not idol worship. Statues were icons and represented the deity's presence. And so this order was really about not representing Yahweh with any one force of nature. There could only be one power, and it can't be represented. And to this day, we still do not allow representations of God, and neither, of course, do Muslims, nor technically Christians. Number 3, you shall not bring up the name of Yahweh your God for a falsehood, because Yahweh will not make one innocent who will bring up his name for a falsehood. Now, this is fantastic. When I do my presentation on the 10.1 commandments, the upgrade, I like to talk about this one. Now, usually it's translated as not taking God's name in vain. But it's not about that. It is purely about lying and about the fact that the commandment means that one cannot make an oath in God's name and not fulfill it. For example, Jephthah makes an oath to God to sacrifice the first thing to come out of his gate, which turns out to be his daughter. Now, we don't allow for human sacrifice, but he sacrifices her rather than violate this commandment. These 10 utterings, my friends, take priority over everything else in the Torah, over every other law. Zakor et Yom HaShabbat LaKadosh. Remember the Sabbath day to make it holy. 6 days you shall work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God, a ceasing. And it applies to your children, your servants, your slaves, your beasts and aliens in your midst. One law for all. Now, in subsequent eras, rabbinic rules allowed for the Shabbos Goy, the alien who could work during the season. Now, I have seen it many, many times. But I myself have always had a problem with that because it is not part of the original intent. And the intent is so important. 5th, honor your father and your mother so that your days will be extended on the land that Yahweh your God is giving you. This, my friends, is the only one that actually provides a reward. And this is a commandment on the father and mother as well, to be worthy of honor. And I'm sure you've noticed that the first 4 commandments concern the relationship between humans and God. The last 5 concern the relationship between humans and other humans, and the bridge between them is this 5th one, which is really regarding our roots and the father and mother of our souls, wisdom and understanding. 6th, you shall not murder. And this is specific. And it's about intentional murder. The Hebrew verb, ratzah, clearly means murder, not kill. And so that ban is specifically on criminal acts of taking life. You shall not commit adultery. Adultery in the Torah is defined as sex between a man and a married woman, but not between a single woman and a married man. Now, the reason for this is that ancient Israel was polygamous. And it was acceptable for a man to have several wives or concubines as long as none of them was married to another man. 8, you shall not steal. Now, of course, in the Hebrew, it's even more compact. And commandments 6, 7, and 8 are each only 2 words and 3 syllables. Lo tirtzak, lo tinaf, lo tignaf. 9th, you shall not testify against your neighbor as a lying witness. Now, this to many seems very similar to the 3rd, except that was regarding oaths, and the Torah did not require oaths in court other than for the strange case of the suspected adulteress. And so this is different. This is for general, testifying against somebody. And the 10th, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his servant or his maid or his ox or his ass or anything that your neighbor has. This, my friends, is perhaps in many ways the most unusual one because it commands regarding an emotional state. The verb chamad exhibits a range of meaning from yearn for, desire, lust after, to simply want. But here, it clearly suggests wanting to possess something that belongs to somebody else. Friends, when we covet, we are diminishing ourselves and what we have. What we have is not good enough. Do not diminish yourself. You are all better than that. And all the people were seeing the thunders and the fires and the sound of the horn and the mountain smoking, and the people saw and they moved and stood at a distance. This will change in Deuteronomy when we are told we only heard and did not see. Feel like my soul is beginning to expand. Look into my heart and you will sort of understand. You brought me here. Now you're trying to turn me away. Writing on the wall. Come read it. Come see what it does say. Now when the Israelites come to Sinai, Yahweh personally speaks directly to the entire nation, pronouncing the 10 Commandments aloud from the sky. The Israelites' response here is to tell Moses, you speak with us so we may listen, but let God not speak with us, or else we'll die. From this moment on, all revelation to Israel is mediated by a prophet, and God never speaks directly to the people again in any book of the Tanakh. And I bet we've been kicking ourselves over that one ever since. Friends, the Sinai encounter is imagined as the decisive moment in human history, when the celestial and the terrestrial realms are brought into the panoramic engagement, and as God comes down on the mountain, every sort of natural firework is let loose, so that the trembling seizes not only the people, but the mountain itself. It's a great distinguishing feature between Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and all other spiritual systems, as the Judaism was revealed to everyone. To 600,000 souls on a mountain. The others were revelations to soul individuals. On Jews and Judaism in Crisis, Gershom Scholem talked about the revelation at Sinai and how that was an awe-filled experience, and that the sense of revelation was sorely missing today, and that we question the legitimacy of revelation. In Insecurity of Freedom, Abraham Joshua Heschel also addresses what he too sees as a modern crisis. Since our synagogues have become mere social clubs, he suggests only through our capacity to reconnect to reverence and awe can we get our faith back. And he says awe is the beginning and gateway of faith. Perhaps God was leading the people via a sense of revelation and awe, with words that had substance and form. And it is our job in this lifetime to reconnect to the Sinai experience. Remember, throughout the 10 words, the commands are cast in the second person singular, you. Elsewhere in Hebrew law, second person plurals or third person singulars are used. But here, the commandments are effectively addressed to each individual person in Israel. And each of you, my friends, when you read them, when you hear them, are receiving a personal message, a personal entreaty, just for you. Thunder on the mountain, rolling to the ground, couldn't get up in the morning, walk the hard road down. Some sweet day I'll stand beside my king. I wouldn't betray your love for any other thing. Love you all, live free, be free, and honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, and be blessed to share and honor the light and all who live in the light, and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone. An end to terror, an end to hatred. And remember, friends, we are a fellowship. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we study together, we support each other. Thank you. Great to see you. See you all next time. Bless you all. Shabbat Shalom. Take care. Bye.